reach out to a few. And by the end of the day, I closed a $25,000 sale and had another person like on the waiting list. So I had $50,000 in booked revenue, 25K, cash collected. And I'm like, I've got something here.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Everyday Saturday Podcast. Sam Crowley here with my friend Joel Erway. Want to give Joel a great introduction. It's wild, man. I met Joel. Well, I didn't meet Joel. I was introduced to Joel and his courses a few years ago. And I don't part with money easily on the internet. I don't click the buy button quickly, but I did with Joel. And the reason I did with Joel is because he was selling a course. We'll talk about all that he does. But at the time, and you keep me honest here, Joel, it was about how to sell high-ticket courses.
Yep.
And I really loved your marketing. I liked the no-nonsense, authentic approach. It helped that you're from Western New York. I'm from that area as well, so that was kind of a feather in your cap. And when I bought the course, I went through it, and it was gold. Like, I think it was $2,000 at the time. Don't know what it is now or what it was before, but at the time, I think it was $2,000. And I could have watched 5 minutes of that course and got my money's worth. And so that's value number one. Then I hired Joel to write a webinar for me. Might have been 12, 15 grand, whatever it was at the time. I don't know what it's paid me back, 100-fold maybe. I have no idea, but that's what Joel does. And we'll get into what he does and the semi-retirement and all the great things that he's into now. I want to talk about AI a little bit as well. But I really resonated with Joel, and you're going to resonate with Joel Erway. And if you don't know Joel Erway, you need to connect with this guy because he's one of the smartest, I think, most genuine people I found online. Joel, welcome to the Everyday Saturday Podcast, my friend.
It's good to be here, Sam. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. So I want to take you back to that. High-ticket courses. That was my first intro to you. And we'll talk about a bunch of stuff. And I also want to talk about like how you got started, because that's a pretty fascinating story,
Sure.
how you got started as well. But I'm just going to pick a pocket in time, 3-4 years ago when I first got introduced to you. What was your thought process around creating content to sell just in that genre, high-ticket stuff?
Yeah. Oh, great question. So it's funny. Nobody's ever like asked that specific question before. That's why I love podcasts, is because you get to unpack and unfold. So the question was, how did I pick that genre? How did I pick that niche?
Yeah, like high-ticket, the success that you had, because it struck me as such a nichified course. And it wasn't inexpensive as courses go, but it was such a niche. I'm like, yeah, like I don't want to sell low ticket. I don't want a lead magnet and 27 different steps on a ladder. You got right to, hey guys, you should be selling high ticket. You need to value your intellectual property or what you do. And I thought it was just so cool how you picked that specific part of all the different value ladders and all the things out there.
Yeah. All right. So I'll give you, I tend to ramble, so feel free to jump in and,
Go right ahead.
and keep me on point here. It's not like I woke up one day when I was trying to plan out my life trajectory. I mean, my original plan was I went to school for engineering. I was a mechanical engineer by training. Then, I spent 5 years in college, went to RIT, Alfred State. And after I graduated, I got a job and I lasted like 8 months. I'm like, I hate this. Like, I hate everything about this field. It's like, I did great in school. I was great at numbers and calculations, but when it came to like designing stuff, I just absolutely, that's not how my brain worked. And so I'm like, oh man, this is not good. So fast forward, jumped career paths, went into sales engineering, really loved sales and marketing, and did great at that for about 5 years, and then started to get the entrepreneurial itch. So I started to read books like The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and I started to get exposed to the world of, I don't even want to call it like online marketing. It was really just this world of like virtual assistants. That's kind of what was the bridge to get me into this world of online business. In that book, Tim Ferriss talks about how you can hire virtual assistants to do some menial tasks for you just to free up time and productivity. Well, that led me down to the rabbit hole of like email marketing. I signed up for a free MailChimp account. Then I just decided I wanted to write an ebook. So I published my first ebook on how to pass the Fundamentals of Engineering exam, which is a licensing process that design engineers go through. And so I started to make some sales. I don't even want to say it was income because I wasn't positive. I'm selling a $10 ebook. But I started to be like, get this itch for like, oh man, like, it's funny because my first thought was, oh, if I sell, 10,000 of these ebooks a month, like I'll be rich. Never mind to the fact that like the number of people that take the fundamentals of engineering exam, I couldn't come anywhere close to 10,000 a month. It's like maybe 30 a month I could sell. So anyway,
You're
just started to learn some lessons in business there. But I made those first couple of sales. I'm like, okay, wow, like I got the itch, and so started to hire other coaches, started to get exposed to the world of online marketing, info products, courses, software, and explored a lot of it. I ended up hiring a marketing coach back in 2014, and I was going to design my own career development course for engineers because I had this unique skill set that if I landed a job interview, I received a job offer from 100% of all interviews that I've ever taken in my entire lifespan. Like whether it's, professional interviews all the way up, to in the engineering space to, being a pin pusher at a bowling alley when I was 15 years old. Like, okay, I think I've got something here. So I hired a marketing coach. I'm like, hey, I've got this course I've built. How do I sell it? And so he told me, you know what you need to do? You need to do webinars. I'm like, okay, I know how to do webinars. I did them for 5 years in my sales engineering role. So I'm like, that's natural to me. Fast forward, I started doing some webinars, making some sales in my course, and I was part of this coaching group, and this mentor of mine was telling everybody to do sales webinars. Now it came natural to me, but it wasn't natural for like 95% of the other people in the group. And this mentor knew the effectiveness of sales webinars, so he's telling everybody to do it because he was good at it, but he couldn't coach everybody. It's just it's very time consuming. So I ended up picking up a few consulting clients and working with them on how to sell their courses while I'm selling my course with webinars. So that went very well, and I ended up pivoting my own brand, so away from selling engineering courses, career development courses, to now launching the webinar agency and doing marketing and sales webinars for other people. So that got me exposed. I promise we'll get to the
No, go right
question
ahead, man.
of
Love it.
how did I niche down into high ticket courses. So I promise we'll get there. But that led me into that world of really courses. How to sell just online courses, and from all different price points. We had some people who wanted to sell a $300 course. We had some people who wanted to sell a $1,000 course. And then, back in 2015, there was a big push for, coaching and consulting programs, like how to use webinars to book appointments and sell your premium priced products and services for $5, $10, $15, $20,000 and up. And it all came very natural to me just because of my background and my sales experience. And what really led me down to niching down into high ticket courses, I don't even want to say I niched down into there, even though I published the book High Ticket Courses. It just stems from the fact that I saw way too many people come into my world wanting to work with me, saying, hey, Joel, I want to do a marketing and sales webinar to sell my $200 course, my $300 course, my $500 course. And without going through all the details of like the economics, that's extremely difficult to make profitable, selling a $300 to $500, even $1,000 course running, if you're relying on paid ads to generate leads, to generate sales. Like, if you make that work at scale, yeah, like that automated webinar, that long form webinar, sell a low ticket course is like the holy grail. But I can tell you right now, 99.5% of people are going to fail. It's just expensive. You need to be really good at what you do. And what I started to realize was that, most people don't, whether, depending on what your audience understands with the market, in my mind, like even $1,000 and below, that's not high ticket. High ticket is really like $3 to $5,000 and above. Nowadays we're selling programs and services for $150,000 and up. I mean, straight from cold traffic. So, I really developed I figured out that like the fastest way for people to kind of become ROI positive and really start to pad their bank account and validate their offer was to really go high ticket first and get to those milestones of either 30K a month, 50K a month, 100K a month. And that might sound like a stretch to people listening right now, but if you can develop a marketing and sales system to sell something that's, $5,000 or above, you'll achieve a lot more profitability that way. So even if you don't want to do that long term, you can then take that money, that excess cash, and then reinvest it in a marketing team that can maybe now sell your lower ticket products. So it's really just about understanding that, starting high ticket is the fastest way to kind of pad your bank account and then use that money to reinvest kind of down your value ladder. And I learned this from Elon Musk. He wrote this blog post about Tesla and how Elon launched Tesla cars. That entire automobile vehicle line was he started out by selling the Roadster first, which was like $120,000 vehicle. So it's the premium market first, highest highest cost in terms of the retail value. And he even explained why he did it. He goes, because that's going to give us the highest profit margin. So then we can reinvest down the value ladder. I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, I already knew that, but I didn't explain it as
Mhm.
eloquently as Elon did. So I just started to reference that. And I'm like, listen, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you don't understand this, then, this model, then, we can't go any further. But thankfully, that message resonated with a lot of people. And so that's really why I always start high ticket and then work my way down the value ladder, because I have plenty of low ticket products of my own. But I'm at a point where I don't need to sell high ticket to survive. And most people in the startup world, most people, when they're launching courses, they're launching products, you know, what's the number one thing they need? Revenue, right? And they need
Yeah.
like a lot of revenue to fund the rest of the business. So hopefully that wasn't too
But
long winded.
so that's fascinating. I just got to ask this question real quick, Joel. Are you an engineer by trade? Like, is that what you went to school for?
Yes, it is mechanical engineering. Yep.
O- Okay. So whenever I have an engineering client, I get scared of engineers, accountants, and attorneys. And I don't get fearful for any other reason but this. Because they come to me, they want to launch a podcast or create what we call their $1 million message, right? And I'm like, dude, you're way too analytical. You're the guy that this needs to fit into here. Square peg, square hole. So engineers scare me. And I tell them this up front, because if it doesn't work perfectly out of the gate, your podcast, this doesn't go exactly right. But you're different because you're an engineer, but now you're an entrepreneur. I don't know many guys like you. What was that crossover like, going from cerebral, everything's got to work perfectly, because in the engineering world, like, if you're going to build a bridge, it needs to work.
Hmm.
It can't fall. It can't be like, oh, well, we tried two of them, eight of them didn't work, so 8 bridges fell down.
Yeah.
But what was that mindset? Like, guys, there's not a lot of guys or girls built like you. How did you do that crossover from engineering mindset to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall? Something's got to stick in this entrepreneurial world, and failure's okay.
Yeah. I have never really thought about it until recently. It's funny because the more that I think about it, the more that I realize how blessed I am to have that blend. Because I'm just like you, Sam. When I work with those types of clients, there's engineers, there's lawyers, there's accountants, and I'm sure there's one or two other niches, but they make me very nervous because they just, they just have to, it has to be systematic. And so it's funny because, when I'm designing offers, I have to have my
Yep.
creative brain on over here. And then when I'm launching and testing, it's like analytical brain has to come on over here. And so when I was working in the engineering field, like, I never thought that I was creative at all, because where I really lacked was in the visual aspect. So as design engineers, we really had to, like, I could run calculations all day. That's how my brain worked, but visualizing and seeing the big picture, and actually just seeing what we were doing was a real big struggle for me. And so for the longest time, I never thought that I was creative. Like, I would never associate myself with creativity, but I have to have a level of creativity when it comes to designing offers. And so, the reality is that I'm very blessed to have that blend of creativity, and I'm aware of it, because
Yeah.
if you're just overly analytical, oh man, good luck, right? But also, if you're overly creative, you can't stay on track, and you're just so pie in the sky, like, just
Yeah.
you can't stay grounded, like, you can't come grounded. And so, I'm blessed that my genetics and my upbringing and my education kind of led me where I was, because I got out of just the straight analytical world very, very quickly. And probably, I needed to learn the right creativity mindset for myself. And, I'm working with a consultant right now. We're launching a live event actually here in 2 days, a workshop. And he's a former client of mine, super, super brilliant, but he's helping us map out the message for this event. Now he is way creative, way like, he just needs an outline and he can go ham and he can just go run the entire 4 hour workshop himself. Now me, I got to have it all detailed out. Like, I need to know, what are we going to say here? What are we going to say here? And so he's like, he has to keep reeling me back in. He's like, come on, Joel, you need to work with me on this. I'm like, I get it. But like, it's so hard for me to detach. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, anyway.
No, that's fascinating.
Yep.
No, that's wild. That's why I asked the question, because, that's an unusual analytical and creative to be working in that same. I mean, online, you got to be that
Yeah.
way,
The analytical
because you're,
side for me creeps up all the time. But sometimes I just have to like take the hammer and whack a mole and say, go back to your hole. Go back to your hole.
I get
Yeah.
it. So when you talk about, so I'm listening to this podcast. This will be on our YouTube channel and all over wherever you download audio podcasts, iTunes, Spotify. And I'm listening to it, and I'm Susie Smith, and I live in Omaha, Nebraska. And I hear Joel saying, start with the Tesla Roadster first. And I'm like, dude, do you even know that I've never sold anything online before? And you want me to come out of the gate firing with a $3,000 to $5,000 course? Hello, imposter syndrome. Hello, first time creating courses. You got to really convince me, brother, that I got something worth $3,000 to $5,000, because I've never done this before. What would you say to Susie in Omaha?
Has Susie ever held a career? Ever held a job?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
so what were they paying her just as an average monthly?
50 grand.
50.
Oh, 50 grand a year.
Okay, so 50 grand a year. So that's roughly 5 grand a month, 4 grand a month, whatever it is, between 4 to 5 grand a month, right? Boom.
Yep.
You've sold high ticket, right? You've sold yourself. Somebody has already paid you $50,000 for X number of years, right? So you have value to somebody, right? So like if you're somebody right now that has to convince themselves like I don't have anything of value, it's like, well, have you ever held a job? Right? Even if you're at McDonald's, even if you're at fast food, right? They're paying you at least minimum wage here in the US here is approaching $15 an hour, right? So that's going to be roughly $30,000 a year. It's all about just shifting your mindset and understanding that, you know, we have to move away from I'm only valuable to one person to now how do I clone that value across multiple people? And the easiest way to kind of do that is understanding how to get people to raise their hand and saying, I like what you have to offer. Let's talk. How can you do that for me? Right? So designing high ticket really is not difficult. It's all about targeting the right people with something that they perceive as being, at least 10 times as valuable as what your investment is, and asking them, are you ready to make that happen now or later? And it's, I don't want to oversimplify these things, but if you've got, pricing objections in your own mind of like, oh, how am I supposed to sell something that's, $5,000, that's $10,000, that's $20,000. Like, okay, well, maybe you don't start at $10,000. Maybe you have to start at $3,000 and work your way up until you get the confidence level, because you absolutely have to deliver the value, right? I'm not telling you to just invent value out of thin air. You absolutely have to deliver that value, but you can start at $2,000 to $3,000. My first high ticket offer that I sold was just premium coaching of that first ebook that I sold, or that I created. So when I created that system of, how to beat the fundamentals of engineering exam, I sold it for $10 on Amazon as a Kindle ebook. Naturally, I had a few people reach out to me saying like, hey, I really like this. Can you work with me to take that even further? And I didn't need anyone to convince me that I needed to just, I wasn't going to sell my time for $10. I wasn't going to coach them for free. So I said, you know what? Sure. I'll consult you for $995, so $1,000. And I think I sold my first 5 or 10 clients that way. And it was all about just them associating value and understanding that I have a system, I have a methodology for getting the result. And if you like that system methodology and you feel like that system, that methodology will work for you, I can help you implement that. That's how I think about it. It's what skill set do you have that other people will find valuable? How can you tie that into a system? And then how can you generate leads to see if people want your help implementing that system now or later?
Yeah, that's the part, the generating leads part. So staying with the same person that they were looking to do a course or coaching, because I want to talk to you about the differences also between doing one-on-one coaching, exchanging your time for money if you're just getting started as well. And I want to come back to that. But I don't have a budget. Let's say I don't have a budget to run any kind of paid traffic, and there's a big learning curve to paid traffic. But I am on, pick a platform, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or things like that. But Joel, I got imposter syndrome bad, dude. I mean, I've never done this before. I've never sold my services before. What if my Aunt Edna sees me out there? What's she going to say about me posting that, I'm all of a sudden now fixing this problem in the marketplace when I've only been making 50 grand at a job my whole life? Like, how would I even generate traffic? Because nobody knows me, number one. And I'm afraid of the people that do know me, my friends and family. They're just going to mock and ridicule and make fun of me, man. But I got to start with organic. What do I do?
Yeah. I mean, number one is you have to, in order to get over that imposter syndrome, you know, you have to figure out what's more valuable to you. Okay. So I always talk about there's this idea of, fame versus fortune. So many people will either, number one, they'll get attracted to um, being famous, or this isn't necessarily the audience that we're talking to, but I just want to kind of paint a picture. There's really two things that people are attracted to in terms of personal growth. One is becoming famous, or social media famous, or getting notoriety, or getting accolades and getting attention from other people. Those are the people who really aren't afraid to go self promote themselves and market, no matter what's going on in their personal life. But then you've got the alternative side of that coin, which is people who are likely, they are, I call them silent geniuses, right? It's like they're an expert in their space, but they've got authority in their space for something that they can do, but they're afraid to tell other people about it, right? Or
Yeah.
they are really, really great at what they do, and they just think that other people are just going to naturally come find them because they're really great at what they do. So I want you to think about, what is more important to you? Is it being nervous that, hey, Aunt Edna or Uncle Bob are going to call you out at Thanksgiving dinner next year because they see some post that doesn't look like you, or that's the old version of you? Old version of you was really, really quiet, or was posting, all pictures about your kids and your family and whatever. Now all of a sudden you're talking about some area of business that you've never talked about before, and you're worried that they're going to question you. Or you know is it more valuable for you to start to build a life of freedom that you control and generate lead flow and taking ownership of your domain and building yourself as a credible authority, and understanding that just because you're great at what you do, just because you can get results, other people will find you, which is false. It will not happen, or at least it will not happen in a consistent manner that you want it to happen. And are you going to step up and start to showcase your authority and start to demonstrate that you can actually help people regardless of what Aunt Edna and Uncle Bob think? Because here's the reality: is that old version of you is going to hold you back. And the other
Mm.
realization is that even though they may comment, like, if it's negativity, then that's their problem. That's not yours. Okay, they're just self projecting that whatever's happening in their life, they're self projecting that towards you. That should not hold you back from going to achieve your dreams, right? But the other thing is, most of the time, that's just fear, right? It's false evidence appearing real, meaning they probably aren't going to say all the bad things that you think they're going to say, and that's what's holding you back. So you got to take that step. You got to overcome that and figure out what's more valuable. Is it more valuable for me to be afraid of what Uncle Bob and Aunt Edna are going to say to me, or is it more valuable for me to understand that if I do start talking about this, then I'm going to have some real genuine conversation. I'm going to attract people that may be interested in my services, and if that happens, then I can double my income the next year. I can quadruple my income the next year. I can 10x my income the next year, all of which is very real and very possible.
Yeah. Amen. All of that. All of that And so I wanted to go back to other form of coaching, one-on-one coaching. When you were talking about doing one-on-one coaching when you first got started, I've listened to a lot of your content and your podcast. By the way, it's solid gold. What's the best podcasting? You had two at the time when I first started listening to
Yeah.
you. Where's the best our podcast audience can plug into your podcast? By the way,
Yeah.
what's the best one?
I do have two podcasts. My first one is more marketing and sales related. That's called Sold with Webinars. So that's very specific to all things, marketing and sales and personal branding and just generating leads and sales and awareness for your business. So that's Sold with Webinars. And the other podcast that I have is Experts Unleashed, which is where I interview other 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs and just pick their brain and figure out how did they do what they do. So that's
Yeah.
exclusively an interview style podcast, and Sold Webinars is a mix of interviews and solo, but it's skewed more towards solo content. So it's probably 70-30 solo versus interview style content.
Yeah, and it's solid gold stuff, man. So I think one easy way to do it is just type Joel Erway, Erway, into iTunes, and you'll see both of them come up right there and take your pick. And also, before I get to the next question, this is coming out fall of 2023. What do you got? Where do you want people to go visiting you online that listen to this podcast and want to find out more about you, your products, your services? We'll mention again at the end. We'll
Mm-hmm.
put a link in the bio. But right now, I want to make sure we get to that. Where's the best place that you would think someone would be best suited going from this podcast to find out more about you online?
For sure. The best place for them to start is joelerway.com. That's kind of my central hub, and they can kind of peruse all of my content and figure out what the best avenue for them is. But I'd say that's the best place for them to start. They'll also find my links to my podcast there, and or you can search for my book, High Ticket Courses. That's on Amazon or highticketcourses.com. So those are probably the best spots to start.
Got it. And so I was listening to you on a podcast a while back. This was a couple of years ago, but you were talking about one-on-one coaching, and it wouldn't be ideal for somebody once you get established because of leverage and there's only one of you and you're selling your time. But I thought this was a really interesting thing you said. And you said that, look, if you're coaching somebody, let's say they're going to pay you $7,500 for 90 days. Okay. Having a call every week just to think that you're putting 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. That's my phrase, not yours, but really stuffing it full of, we're going to have a call every week for 12 weeks and look at all this great value. Rather than do that, sell the solution. Okay. So this is the result of us working together. And you use the word transformation a lot. And I love that word. That is a very powerful word, transformation. And I thought it was genius what you said, Joel, because you're like, look, if you happen to have a call every Monday and life happens, kids get sick, home from school, you got to take a quick trip somewhere, you don't get the work done. You're just having a call to talk about the weather, or it's a waste of time. Rather than that, say, look, you have access to me when you need me. And when you need me, we're going to have a very strategic call, high content, high level strategy call. I thought that was a great thing because you may have 2 calls in 12 weeks, but you still got the result.
Exactly.
Do you remember saying something, or maybe you've said it 1,000 times, but does that ring a bell?
Yeah. The reality is when you sell one-on-one coaching, you are likely selling to the type of prospect that values their time more than they value their money. Okay. And if you solve a pressing pain, if you solve an urgent pain, or are selling them into some sort of new desired solution, because you don't always have to solve like pressing pains, right? The pain could just be, I don't know how to get there. It might be, I want to get here, but I just don't know what the fastest way to get it. That could be the pain. But regardless, if you're selling some sort of solution, one-on-one coaching is likely going to be the highest investment that you sell in terms of the form of the transformation, the form of the result. And the people who are willing to pay for one-on-one value their time more than they value their money. And so I've seen this mistake happen so many times. And when people design their offers and they start to go through, here's what you're going to get, right? You get all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh yeah. And then you also get, every single week we get we're going to have an hour-long call. And on that call, we're going to do this and this and this and this. And many times I've been on the receiving end of those pitches where I want to go buy something. And if they tell me that, like I hired, I'll never forget this. I hired a high performance coach, a mindset coach, 2 or 3 years ago. Great guy, really, really great guy. He was Lance Armstrong's mindset coach. He was Tiger Woods' mindset coach for a while. So like this dude is like top of the top. And so we get on a discovery call, and I'm like, yeah, okay, like what's it look like to work with you? And he's telling me that like I have to show up, like I got to do these weekly hour-long calls. And I told him like, oh man, I really don't want to do that. Like, is that a requirement of yours? Yes, it's an absolute requirement. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll do it. So I did end up investing in it, but like I kind of just dreaded those calls every single week because I'm like, what are we going to be doing? Like, I have a specific problem that I really want your help with. And it doesn't require me to take an hour out of my time every single week to get this resolved. And ever since that moment, you know, unless it's like absolutely critical and required, I've had a lot of people pitch me their services and products and say, "Yeah, there's a weekly call that we got to do." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm out. I'm not doing it. Like, I'm willing to cut you a fat check, but I
Yep.
don't need your time. Like, I don't need all that time that you're requiring, and I don't think the solution requires it." And so, what people don't understand is that a lot of times that's a negative, right? When you are speaking to this audience, like if you tell them they got to show up for X, Y, Z calls, like that's the number one reason why they want to cut a fat check is so they don't have to do these calls, right? So they don't have to show up to group coaching calls. They don't have to show up to all these other things. There is a segment of your audience who will sign up for that, and those are the people who value their money more than they value their time. That's why it's going to be a lower investment for people to work at that level because they have to sacrifice more of their time to get the result. But if I'm the top of the top, top level buyer, and I just want to pay for a result, like I want that in as little time as possible, right? And so working one-on-one with clients, that's why I give them like the emergency line. That's what they want. It's like give me access, when I need it. Give me the bat line, give me the emergency hotlines. Like, hey, text me whenever you got a quick question. Because a lot of times, we have this asynchronous communication now where most of these questions can be answered either via Loom or via text message or via a Slack. And if I say, you can ping me whenever you want, I'll get back to you within 24 hours, boom. That's enough for a lot of people to be like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, but you're Joel Erway. You can command that. I'm Jim. I'm Jim, and I just make up names and places, by the way. So I'm Jim in Boise. I'm not Joel Erway.
Yep.
So if I just say, text me or Voxer me your question, and I'll answer it in 24 hours, they're gonna be like, well, who the hell are you, man? You're not anybody. I don't see you on the internet anywhere. But yeah, Joel Erway does it. See how again that can creep up in people's minds? I'd love to hear your feedback on that.
The reality is if anybody is giving you that objection, then they're not sold. Then either one of two things are true. Okay, if they're bringing up that objection, like, yeah, but you're a nobody. Well, number one, you haven't established authority well enough, and it's probably if they're in a sales conversation and they're giving you that objection, that I would highly doubt that that's going to come up. But it may come up if number one, like they're not sold on your solution yet, right?
Yeah.
Either they're not sold on how you deliver the result, or the pain's just not urgent enough for them. It's not big enough for them yet, right? So that all comes down to urgency, because the bottom line is if they have an urgent enough problem and they're engaging in a conversation with you to solve that problem, the only other thing that you really need to convince them on is why your methodology is the fastest, safest way for them to achieve that
Yeah.
result. And so if they're bringing up that objective, they do not believe in your methodology. They do not believe in your system. And that doesn't mean like if they can buy into your system and your methodology, they instantly already view you as an authority. Right? So if you're getting that
Right.
objection of like, oh yeah, well, I don't believe you, it's because you haven't done a good enough job of selling why the system works, why the system is the best way for that, why the system that you developed, by the way, that's what makes you an authority, is you created this system, why the system that you developed is the best way for them to solve whatever problem that they have.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I want to get into AI. I'm kicking and screaming into this AI world, dude. I'm so old school.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I'm 55. Maybe it's because I love just the authenticity. I don't think I'll ever outsource my message and my passion, but I'm coming over to the dark side. All right. And I'm on your email list. So I know that you've been in the AI space. By the way, do you write your own emails?
I do. Yep.
That's great copy, man. That's great copy. I didn't know the answer to that question.
So I've experimented with so anyway, let's get into AI because I have a feeling I know where the conversation
AI.
is going to go. Yep.
So with AI, okay, so I'm just like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably a 2 right now. I'm Chat GPT,
Hmm.
like coming up with ideas for, podcast topics
Hmm.
or things like that. I don't even know what I don't know. So I see your emails and I'm like, Joel Erway is going down the AI rabbit hole. And I thought you wrote a brilliant email. This might even have been 6 months to a year ago. I don't want you to think I'm a stalker, by the way, but I kind of, that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast
Hmm.
so I could just come clean and tell you all this stuff
There
I
you
know
go.
about you. But you're like, all these AI gurus are saying this and that. They don't even know what the hell they're talking about. I'm
Yeah,
paraphrasing,
yeah.
but what is it about AI that most people are missing, you think? And feel free to take this and run with it, man. Like, what is it, number one? I'm only on ChatGPT just to use it for some research and things like that. What are you using for in your business? And what's the biggest misconception so far about that
Yeah.
AI?
This is a topic that I love. Okay. I'm a tech guy at heart. It's kind of like my secret passion. I just love all things tech. But I'm also, as an engineer, I always approach things with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Mhm.
I made a big mistake of like jumping all into crypto at the absolute worst time, which was April of 2021. I pumped a bunch of money into it, and then immediately the market just has collapsed since then. So anyway, I'm still, just to be clear, I'm still a firm believer in crypto and blockchain. It's just
Yeah.
from an investment standpoint, I got it at the absolute wrong time. So I am still a believer in all that tech. So let's talk about AI, because the biggest thing with AI in um, key point number one is that we are at a point of a rate of acceleration, a rate of change that what I say today is probably not even going to be true tomorrow. That's how fast things
Mm.
are changing with AI. The biggest misconception, though, that people in the marketing and the content creation space have with AI that I don't think is there yet is they think it's going to take all their jobs. I I
Mhm.
don't think it's going to take all their jobs because if we hold on to that belief, people also said that when the internet came out, right? When people started to
Mhm.
adopt the internet, oh my god, it's going to change. It's going to, so many people are going to be out of jobs. It's like, well, that just happens with technological evolution. Is that it's not that people are out of jobs, jobs do become obsolete, but it's up to those people to also learn other skills to then go just adapt, because it's not like jobs are going to disappear. Now we're not going to have any work for people. It's just going to
Right.
adapt. Okay, so that's the first thing. Number one, it's going to change rapidly. Number two is don't be afraid of it. You got to embrace it. And I know that's difficult for some people to say, especially if they're of the generation where they couldn't even adopt the internet, like my grandparents. It's like they tried for so long to like them getting the internet was just like I, it was game changing. But you just can't be afraid of it. Can't be afraid of it. It's going to be involved in our life. It's already involved in our life, in people's lives, and they don't even realize it. And we're now seeing AI generated sales calls, like outbound sales conversations. Like you are talking to an AI voice and going back and
Wow.
forth. So it's going to happen. It's coming. It's here. But I don't want anyone to be like, I don't want to I'm not afraid of it. I don't think anybody else should be afraid of it, because I think number one, the government's going to be imposing their own types of regulations and restrictions on it so it doesn't get completely out of control. I do not think that the world is like we are going to get attacked by AI bots. I don't think that's coming down the pipe. I don't think we're going to have like a Terminator moment. But what I'm using AI for is, and what it's helped with tremendously, is creativity. Okay, so like I have tried to train AI to just like write my emails for me and um and come up with content for me, and it can do a good job, like it really can. But we're in a world right now where content production is and content volume is a commodity. Like we don't need any more content. We haven't needed any more content for decades. Like ever since YouTube came out like 15 plus years ago, and the internet came out, like content has been, I mean, the world is inundated with content. What we need is perspective. And that's what
Mhm.
people will pay for. That's what people will pay attention for. And as of right now, I do not think that AI is completely taking over personalities. Meaning, there's a reason why you open my emails, Sam. There's a reason
Yep.
why other people follow me. There's a reason why other people follow thousands of other influencers because they want their perspective, right? AI is great at generating just fluffy content, and it can be even valuable content. But what people will pay attention to is what is my spin on something that's happening? What is my take on another thing that's happening? How can I explain something in a way that makes my audience get it? Right? Because that is what I feel like is the biggest gap with people and why they're so afraid of AI. What I use specifically ChatGPT for, and this is what is like game changer for me as a marketer, as a copywriter, as an offer designer, is how do I explain things in a way that people are going to understand? I will feed it a piece of content like, hey, I want to teach this, right? I want to teach this one core point. Tell me a story that will get my audience to come to the self realization themselves that this point is important, right? And that's what's unique. Like, that's what ChatGPT is great for. Um, you know, I'm creating a 4 hour long event and I want to understand more about my market. You know, what are their fears? What are their pains? What are their desires, right? If I've got this one core concept that I want my audience to understand, what are 4 false beliefs that they have around this being true?
Mm.
And that's all stuff that I've known intuitively or maybe even have not been able to explain clearly. But ChatGPT is now able to help me refine my message, make it more clearly. Distilling thoughts that I have a hard time explaining, now they're able to distill it immediately, and I can tell it 100,000 different ways. So while I'm not yet convinced that we're going to be at a point where I can just say, hey, go clone Joel, AI, can you come clone me? Maybe it can for content that I've already produced, but my audience and the world is still yearning for my unique perspective. And as
Yep.
far as I know, as of right now, that's not um, that's not happening. Now, um, that doesn't mean in 3 months, 6 months, a year, that's that's still going to be true. I mean, that's the one thing that I don't know about AI is it's changing so fast. I mean, we do have, fully AI YouTube channels that are popping up with these, you know, artificially generated human beings. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of creepy and it's kind of scary, but I think that it's going to place even more of a premium on real human to human interactions. I think we can determine, like, we can rely on AI for certain things, just like a search engine, but it's going to place an even higher premium on true authenticity, true human experiences, live events, live experiences, because we are now at an age of, like, you can't believe anything you see on the internet. Like, it's going to be literally to a point where you can literally you have to question everything that you
I
see.
know.
And so I mean, I embrace it, but I understand why people are afraid. But I just don't think that we need to be afraid, because I think the pendulum is going to swing more towards authenticity. We've got AI that does automation and all this other content and all this other stuff. ChatGPT is freaking phenomenal. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now,
Yeah.
do I have it creating my emails? No. I've had it create a couple, and I'll send it, and like, this is as much of as I've refined it, it just, there's still certain things that don't sound like me. And when I refine it so often, I'm like, I might as well have just written the damn email to start with, it's like I'm spending
Yeah.
so much time to tweak it and refine it to make it sound exactly like me. I'm like, I could have written this thing 5 times already. But anyway.
Yep. I love that answer. I'm so glad I asked that question because you nailed it. Authenticity is at a premium even more now than it's ever been.
Hmm.
And people want your perspective on that's why I love podcasts so much, because all the fluff, you're just having an authentic conversation with somebody. I mean, we have no script. I have no questions written down. We're having a conversation like we're hanging out having a cup of coffee. It's going well, as far as I can
Hmm.
tell. And so I think it's important that people understand that they still want your perspective on a topic. And I'll give you an example. And I'm not afraid of AI. It's just like, I'm so authentic, probably to a fault. I mean, my wife is like, "Hey, maybe dial that part down a little bit." I think, you might don't go after the corporate guy too much in the podcast. But, I sent an email out. I just tested it once. I put into Chat GPT, like, write an email about the power of a dream or something like that. And I just copy paste it and sent it to my list. And I compared it against the previous email I sent about, I think I was like, for example, I podcast every day in my car from a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. So that's my
Hmm.
podcast. I've got the Shure MV88 mic right here, plugs into my iPhone, and I've been doing it since 2005. Okay. People love
Hmm.
that because you don't need a studio, you don't need expensive equipment. It's not the best production wins, it's the best message
Yep.
wins. And so I wrote an email similar to that. And the email open rate on that video about the Dunkin' Donuts open rate was 37%. The open rate on the Chat GPT, although it wasn't bad, it wasn't nearly that. And the click through rate was abysmal because it was just this fluffy fluff dream, go for your dream, be confident. And so it was very obvious to me people still want your perspective and your
Yep.
authenticity when it comes to getting a message,
Yeah,
you know?
it's funny. I'll echo that 100%. During COVID, I was doing solo episodes of sold webinars, and I did a version where it was just rucking with Joel. So if you don't know what rucking is, it's basically just walking with weights on your back, like in a backpack. Like just add extra stress on your exercise. And so I started doing rucking with Joel episodes, and I have my. I'll show you. So these headphones, which are
Yep.
expensive wireless headphones, but have an absolutely garbage microphone. Garbage. It's
Yep.
horrible. Like the quality is just awful. So I just put that on. I'd start recording from my phone, but through those headphones and through that microphone, and I wouldn't even listen to it. I mean, I just send it off to the video, the editor, and like a few months afterwards, like I listened to a couple episodes, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this sounds awful. And like there's wind noise everywhere. Like you can hear the backpack rustling as I'm walking through. I'm like, how did
I
anybody?
listened to him. I listened to him.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, how did anybody like sit through this? And but I got no negative feedback from it. And I'm like, okay. I mean, authenticity wins, man. It really does. And the amount of people that reach out to me saying like, "Oh man, I didn't know you rocked." Like, I rock. I'm like, okay, cool. Like those are the things that people want to connect with. Because
Yeah.
here's the one thing that's kind of wild, Sam, is that in terms of podcasting, like video podcasts, like what we're doing right now, here's what you will be able to do, and you could actually probably do right now. Okay. You could have a video chat with me without me being here, and you can set it up, right? If you trained AI on all of my content and then took a couple of video still images of like me sitting here at my studio, you could use generative AI to just ask me questions live and have me answer. Now, I don't know what the answers are going to be, but that is possible. So now we're getting to a point where we can have AI talk to AI. So that's you talking to an AI version of me, but then you can also train yourself into AI. So you can have AI talking to an AI version of your guest, and you can talk to anyone, dead or alive. You can make that Abraham Lincoln. You could make that, George Washington. You can make it Albert Einstein. You can make it, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Like you name it. You can make that happen. So that's going to be kind of the interesting part of where we're already at. But it's I don't know how long it's going to take for AI to come up and be truly indistinguishable from an authentic conversation like with you and me, because it's close, but there's always going to be some gaps.
Well, I don't use the word guarantee often, but I guarantee that I'm never going to be doing a podcast interview with a cardboard cutout of George Washington. Okay. Or Joel
Yep.
Erway. That doesn't sound like something that I would necessarily want to do. But I'm glad we brought that up and that you went into great detail, because what I wanted the audience to hear is you can never really outsource your authenticity.
Mhm.
As much as you try to do it, people still want your unique perspective, and your perspective changes. Mine changes on
Mhm.
topics. I had maybe passionate about something one way 5 or 10 years ago, but that was 5 or 10 years ago. And now I've got a new perspective on it. I think that's what really makes a successful podcast. But more importantly, your power offer. I mean, you talk about that, and man, we haven't even touched. I mean, there's so much I wanted to talk about, and we're already at an hour, so I don't want to take your time. But when I hear Joel Erway, I think power offer. I think just make the damn offer. I think sales first, marketing second.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are like my top three Joel Erway type of. When someone says Joel Erway, I think power offer. I think anybody that knows you knows
Yep.
that. Like, so for the last few minutes, and I know I'm doing this completely a disjustice, an injustice rather, but what is a power offer? Because if I didn't ask this question, then I should be just interviewing a cardboard cutout of
Yeah.
you. Okay. Power offer.
So
In layman's terms, how do you describe that?
once somebody decides that they've got a product or service they want to sell, they want to market, they want to generate leads for, the next question is, well, how do I generate leads for it? What's my message? How do I make that happen? And I struggled with this for a very, very long time of, there's like if you follow any of the digital marketers, like good luck, you're entering into a sea of confusion and everyone's going to have their own unique spin. And I'm not here to say that I'm the best and I'm the greatest and you only follow me. But I went through the journey of listening to all these different marketers. And what happens is a lot of them will start to pitch you on their funnel system, right? It's like, no, you need this funnel in order for success. You need this funnel in order for success. You need this funnel, like whether it's a webinar funnel or a challenge funnel or a lead magnet or whatever, right? That's usually the conversation in which you start to get sucked into. Okay, awesome. So let's say you do decide to go down those funnels. Well, you still don't really know how to like get people into those funnels. And after like many, many, many months and years of trial and error, it happened. I was, running my own agency. I was trying to generate leads for my own agency at that point. We had our own webinar running, long form webinar that was trying to book appointments to sell people on our webinar services. And it just wasn't working as well as I'd liked. And so I remember we had just moved to Lewiston. We just moved into our brand new home. It was our dream home. It was like four times as expensive as our previous home. So like the expenses were a lot higher. Our son was just born. He's, probably 6 months old, 8 months old at this time. My wife was no longer working. So I'm the sole income provider. And I'm just like beating my head against the wall. I've joined 4 masterminds ranging from like $20,000 to $30,000 a piece, trying to crack this code, and everyone's saying, do this, hire an agency, spend more money on ads, do this. And I was just getting some level of success, but just wasn't sustainable. And I'm laying awake in bed one night and thinking where my next, like, what do I need to do next? And I'm reading this book from Bob Bly. He's a copywriter. And the title of the book was called How to Create an Irresistible Offer. And one of the charts in like the first 3 pages, it explained that the fastest way to generate a customer is to make direct offers. That's oversimplifying what the chart says because Bob is an engineer. Actually, he went to school in Rochester as well, but he's an engineer and his book was so, I'm not trying to discredit him because it was a great book, but his language is very dry. Very, very dry. It's spoken like an engineer. So I had to like, I remember staring at this chart and like, I'm like, there's gold here, but I had to decipher it for myself. It took me a long time to decipher. I'm like, holy crap. What I had been doing up until this point was I was attracting freebie seeking leads and I was generating leads of people who didn't want to buy right now. And understanding that how my messaging was framed right now was generating those types of leads. And it was taking me a really, really long time to convert them into wanting to purchase my products and services. But nobody was telling me how to generate leads of people who wanted to buy right now. And so I ran downstairs. I saw this chart. I'm like, I get it. I know exactly what I need to do. I run downstairs, fire up my laptop. It's like 11:30 at night. I said, I'm going to type this script out. And it's just the first thing that came to my head. And I wrote this to my organic audience, my social media following on Facebook. And I said, hey, if you've got a course, and it was the end of the year, it was like approaching December. And I said, attention course creators, if I offer to write you a high converting webinar in the next 24 hours, or it was either 24 hours or 7 days, because I did create both of those, but whatever. If I offer to write you a high converting webinar in the next 7 days, without you needing to worry about what to say or how to say it, would you take me up on that offer? right? And so I posted that on my social media profile, not even paid ads, by the way, just my organic audience. And I said, I
Mhm.
have such a good feeling about this that I'm just going to close my laptop. I'm not going to look at it at all until the morning. I wake up the next morning, open up my phone. I've got like 30 leads of people saying like, yes, I'm interested. Like, hey, let's talk. I'm I like that offer. Let's talk. I'm like, holy shit, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can swear curse on this podcast, but I'm like, holy
Sure.
crap,
Go ahead.
you know,
Every day is Saturday.
that's right. So I reached out to a few, and by the end of the day, I closed a $25,000 sale and had another person like in on the waiting list. So I had $50,000 in booked revenue, 25K, cash collected, and I'm like, I've got something here. So I'm like, okay, well, that worked for my organic audience. Now, what if I just change my entire, paid traffic campaign to where I'm not attracting leads, I'm now attracting people who want to buy right now. And so I took that exact same copy, which is now known as the Power Offer script. I posted that as an ad, and that cut my lead cost by 90%. It was costing me $400 to get a booked appointment. Now it was costing me like $30 to $40 per booked appointment of people who were ready to buy right now. Like they wanted to have an
Yeah.
engaging sales conversation. Like, hey, I saw that post. Let's have a conversation and let's see if we can work something out. And it's
Yep.
changed the game for me. Then we replicated that across a bunch of client accounts. I started to run workshops teaching that power offer. I mean, it's now responsible for over 9 figures in revenue because what it does is it allows you to simplify what it is that you do for your audience into one key sentence. And if your audience doesn't respond to that, your offer is off, your promise is off. And it's the Monopoly rule. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not do anything else until you've got your power offer dialed in and you post it to any sort of audience. You need that feedback. And if you get the feedback that nobody wants it, you need to look at that as a positive, as if you just took a 4-year marketing degree and saved yourself a heck of a lot of time. Because when you post an offer and it dies, which it will happen, you'll get no engagement or people don't want it. That's the most valuable feedback that you can have. You do not create a product around that. You do not do anything else. You revise that power offer until you get people saying, yeah, okay, let's talk. I'm interested. And you can do that with ads.
Yeah.
You can do that anywhere you have an audience. You can do it with email. You can do it with social media. It's the most powerful thing that we've ever developed and ever come up with. So that is the power offer
No,
in a nutshell.
it worked on me. Worked on me.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why it did. Because I came to the call with a high level of desire.
Yep.
So when you come to the call with a high level of desire, there's no selling. And oh, by the way, when it wasn't with you, but a member of your team, there was no NLP closing techniques happening on me. Okay. It was educational.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly you have to persuade people to get on board. It's not like I just said, hey, I got a credit card from Joel's team. Can I buy? But I thought that was really well said by you and a very well written when it was targeted for individuals like me. You brought me to the call with a high desire. I think that's a real power. Well,
Yeah. And so in the world of sales, people don't understand that either. It's like, anytime that you follow sales training, like if you need sales training to make a sale, and I'm talking like full blown, soup to nuts NLP training, what you understand is you are part of the marketing funnel, right? So you are learning to take an uninterested lead, build interest, build desire, and then convert them into a sale. The system that we developed does not require marketing at all. Like it's meant to bring people who have a high desire for what you have based on your promise and your result, and they want to know, how can this work for me? Okay. So you are not taking them through and like pressing on their pains, like, oh, how does that feel not to have this solution and all this other BS that you have to go through. I mean, Sam, the amount of people that come into my world and make sales with this system, and I give them no sales training, and I do it intentionally because as soon as I give them some sort of framework, they freeze up and they're like, I got to follow this step by step by step. If you come in with just a servant mindset of, hey, I made a promise, let's have a quick call to figure out if this is the right fit for you and if I can actually help, the rest is history. I mean, there's a reason why I don't give any sort of, hardcore sales training, is because as soon as people see it, now they pigeonhole themselves into, I have to do this and only this or else it won't work. And it's like, no, That's not
Right.
true at all. If you have a compelling promise, a compelling offer, and people come into the call after seeing that, the only question they want to know, for the most part, the biggest question is, will this work for me? How will this work for me? I like that offer. I like that promise. I like the system. How is this going to work with me? Because everybody thinks I'm different. All of your prospects
Yep.
think that I'm different. I'm unique. So let's have a call, and I want you to explain to me tell me whether or not this is going to work for me, and then we can have a discussion on what the investment is. Like, I don't want to say it's that simple, but it is that simple. Like, that's the whole sales system in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. And I've seen it work. Not just, with what you and I have done in business in the past, but you and the thousands of other people that you've helped. And I just think you're one of the good guys online. That's why I wanted to have you on the podcast today. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this. Look, dude, I could talk to you for 5 hours, but doubt you have 5 hours to give to a podcast. So we will cut it now. And I just want to give a big thanks to Joel Erway. Check out his podcast. Just type in Joel Erway wherever you get podcasts, on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, all over the place. Go to joelerway.com. Find out more about how Joel or anybody from his team can help you. But man, follow this guy. He is a treasure trove of information. Joel, thanks so much for being on the Everyday Saturday podcast. I mean, it's great to have
Thanks,
you.
Sam.
Hey, another podcast episode in the books. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, a couple things. Number one, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode. Number two, can you like the video? Helps all that algorithm juice get going. We're looking for amazing people like you. And when you like the video, it helps us out. And here's the last thing and the most important thing. Everybody has a story to share and a lesson to teach, and that means you. Get that message out there, all right? And make every day a Saturday. I'll see you on the next episode.